Thanks, Roger. We are going to record the components here to share with other people that might have questions later, and you can certainly opt in or opt out as you choose. It shouldn't change your experience. So why teaching? Why secondary? And why secondary teaching at UW-Madison? I think all of those, three of those, are a very worthy topic to discuss and to make sure that they land with your goals. This slide is particularly pointing about why with us. So just a few of the things that we are calling forward here, and we have found to be super helpful for students. And I'm really happy with a lot of these components. Cross-content cohort. I can't tell you how supportive it has been. I've been in this program now for about, all 11 years of this program, and 2 years before that even. And the idea of working with a common set of peers that you develop a relationship and a community with that crosses content area really helps with understanding the nuts and bolts of the teaching, the various attributes of the relationship building that you're going through, and the various places that we come with different types of experiences. Teaching works really well in schools when we have different types of teachers. And so having a really mixed group of people in the cohort is super helpful for your learning opportunities as well. The next thing I would say is we have you working with kids, adolescents the whole time, starting day one. You're in a community setting. So it's this interplay that we're always talking about on how does the developmental approach about what you're learning that's new fit with your practical understanding of what it means to be a teacher. And doing those back and forth, because we know that learning does best when we can iterate. We do the steps at the time to pick up where we're going, and then we want to try again. So we are constantly playing back and forth between some really amazing classes and some opportunities to work in the field. Part of teaching is always thinking about what teaching would be like, because obviously context matters, and where you teach is going to be so individualized. But we're going to help you think about it across a lot of different scenarios, and pick up what you need to be the best teacher you can be at the beginning. The next one is accessible experts in teacher ed. We are working with some of the most amazing faculty and teacher educators that have been studying and exploring what works and what doesn't work for years. Very exciting on the types of things that we're able to bring forward here. The compact program design, that might be some of the reasons some of you are here. We only start in June, and that's the idea, so that the following academic year comes September, you have a master's degree and you're ready to start teaching as a professional in both your content area and ESL. So we call it 14 months because technically by the calendar, that's it. But we start every year mid-June, and then you travel through the first summer, 2 separate quarter experiences in the fall, full-time student teaching, a little bit of a break in May. Then we come back in for the second summer for your master's project. There's also an opportunity to slow down if it gets to be too much, or set down a piece of it. Although it's set up to be accelerated, if that ends up not being a fit for you, we can pivot. And then support for our alumni afterwards. The Teacher Ed Center does a good job of staying in contact. We know that a lot of people struggle with finding the right school fit and their community, primarily in the first 3 to 5 years. And if we can be that support for you in case you don't land exactly in the right space, we are totally here. I am in contact with a lot of our alumni, as are their advisors. And then the Teacher Ed Center brings you back to campus for an early career teaching institute that just helps you reconnect with why you're teaching, what you're doing, and how to keep moving things forward. So it's very supportive even afterwards. And then, of course, the Teacher Pledge, which is amazing. It covers in-state tuition for pretty much all applicants. If you can stay teaching, if you qualify to be a teacher in the Wisconsin, so that sometimes precludes some of our international candidates and friends, but pretty much everybody else, you're in. And so that's a super helpful loan forgiveness program. Just because we are kind of a small group, how many of you are interested in exploring the details about the teacher ed program in more detail? Or if you've seen these things already, just going to stop sharing for a minute so I can look at the chat. Or if somebody wants to raise their hand or say something like, yes, dig into the teacher pledge, or yes.
I would be happy to learn a little bit more about it,
I
please.
Great. That's three yeses right off the bat there. We're going in. Okay, the teacher pledge is no joke. It is amazing. It is one of my favorite things that we are able to offer candidates that are becoming educators. So the way that this works is, let me pull that. Well, there it is. Okay, so the teacher pledge program is if you had an undergrad teacher pledge, you couldn't do another one. That would be the primary reason somebody was denied, unless they were not a resident. So what it comes down to is it is a no interest loan. It offers you 5 years of money with no interest. You can have that refunded or sorry, forgiven if you teach in Wisconsin for the agreed amount of time. So you have 5 years with no interest, just sitting there and waiting. And if you're able to teach 3 to 4 years, depending on your content area and the school you're in, 3 years if it's high needs, 4 years if not, and then there's no loan to repay. If you, I'm going to just make sure I don't get ahead of the slides. You do have to graduate from the program, and you'll have to get a teaching license, and you have to teach 75% of an academic year. But other than that, you pick the school, you pick the area you want to work in, you pick the age range, all of the pieces. And it's super easy to verify employment because we do that right through DPI. And the Carly Marco is available for all types of questions. She's really good at staying connected to candidates and a really great person to engage with the nuanced details of the financial pieces that might seem new or different to you. And so the eligibility, again, I think it's sometimes challenging for people to believe, but yes, it's good for in-state residents, out-of-state residents, permanent resident holders, those who have not already taken the pledge. All of those get approximately $26,000 over the course of the program. That amount is calculated by full tuition for summer, fall, spring, and summer. Then there's some additional monies added because it also covers the fee that you have to pay for a license in Wisconsin. And if you're asked to take a praxis exam or an ACTFL exam because of your certification, and a couple of other small little fees that'll come up, like your background check and things like that. So that's all put into the amount that they'll give you, and they give you a portion of it each semester. And then again, if you change your mind and you take the money in and then you end up not wanting to teach in Wisconsin, you still have 5 years to repay that loan. Or if you start teaching, year one, 25% of it is forgiven and 75% of your loan is still there. Year two, 50. And then year three, the rest of it is gone if you're in a high need school or in math, science, ESL, or world language. And if it's a non-high need school in social studies or English, year four. So you have a grace year in there if you decide that you want to take a gap or something else is coming up. And the only thing that happens after that fifth year is we ask you to start paying it back. Okay, let's see. How are we doing on questions about fit and topic?
Quick question on the loan forgiveness aspect. Is it based on the remainder that's left, or is it'd be in full if you didn't complete it within the 5 years?
Remainder that's left.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I love it. Okay, let's see. How about if you let me keep going, I have lots more to talk about. Maybe if I could even know what subject area you're coming from, so I know where we're at. If it's English, science, social studies. Yeah. Oh, look, love that. Roger, you are on it. I'm a fan. Okay, social studies in the house, science, very good, and math, love it. Okay. Um, so I just want to point out again the magical wand that apparently social studies and science is still living in regard to certification. If you come through an initial certification program, you do not pick a discrete area. So you don't do physics or history. You do all science and all social studies. And so the idea there is that we will teach you the methods on how you explore inside those disciplines. And the school district and you will understand how much content background you need to teach any individual discipline. So that would be, sometimes some people get confused, like they thought they were going to be a chemistry teacher and they come in and it's all science. And that does dovetail into as well that we ask, the content is pretty well set when you come in because we really just focus on the teacher ed components. So we have a really wide variety of candidates that have all types of different experiences, to zero teaching experience and never having been around youth, to actually full teachers in other contexts, but they need this particular license. And I think it creates a really interesting dynamic for the cohort that has proven to be quite strong. If we talk about application and, well, yeah, that's telling us if you fit what we have. But I really want to emphasize that I first think it needs to be a fit for what you're looking for and where you're going. So if those questions haven't been answered, let's please get back to those. I would love to be as direct as possible to help you know where that fit is. So the components about the timeline and the content areas. So right now, math and science are not near their capacity limit. They have larger cohorts than they have in some years because they tend to have smaller cohorts. Right now, they're both sitting at, I'm going to estimate about 17 candidates in their group. Social studies at the moment is sitting at 30 applicants. Now, the challenge here is not that you shouldn't apply. The challenge here is let's make sure that you're a strong candidate and match, because there is a waiting list and it will be looked at across how ready you are. And so we can talk about those in more detail. You can also talk to Mariah Pohl or Tom Owenby, and I can put those names and emails in the chat if you want to. They are the social studies program coordinator, and Mariah is new this year, so that's part of the reason we're not going to be able to do a huge cohort. We are designed to do about 25, but we are ready. We can handle 30, and that's still really comfortable. And then Tom Owenby, who is currently the director of the Teacher Ed Center, used to be the social studies coordinator. The last little shout out to social studies. I was also a social studies teacher. And so when I came into this program, that's the path that I came through. So we can certainly talk about those in more detail. I just would say that the threshold is a little bit different. With math and science, it's really about yes, thank you, Roger. If you'd like to email Tom a question, he just put that in, and I'm going to guess Mariah Pohl is going to come up soon. In math, the number one concern is almost about breadth of math background. You certainly don't need to have a PhD in math, but they do want to see some things that common math degrees don't always have, like geometry. So if we need to talk about that, the person that you could also send an informal transcript to is Lisa Hennessy. She is the program coordinator for math secondary. And so what she can do is, before you put in the full application, you can just ask her, like, how am I doing on the content background? I had a degree in journalism, but I really liked math, and I have a lot of classes that cover the domains of math. Can you help me see what I have or what I might need? That's a very common question that we're happy to answer. In social studies and science, it's almost impossible to have all of the areas So the other thing is once we get close, and generally what we're looking for is 1 deep and 2 with some type of breadth of the social studies within the areas. And then we can have you take a praxis exam, which is about a high school level across the board social studies test that does econ, history, psychology, geography, and poli-sci. So behavioral science with psychology and sociology, those can be taken up in different ways. And then in science, the praxis exam is again at a high school level, but it does cover both living sciences and physical sciences. So earth sciences, environmental sciences, biology, physics, chemistry. Oh, shoot, I think I'm forgetting our area. Okay, great. So I'm going to go on to application unless we think there's some other questions that are bubbling to mind.
Hey, Joey.
Yeah,
We had a question come in the chat that was related to how is universities or how is the commitment to or what is the commitment of universities to basically finding jobs for students?
got you. Okay. No, I hear that. That's a good one. It depends a lot on you. We are so fully committed to you as a teacher educator. And so if you are able to move at all, I can't say guarantee. The chances of you getting a job are incredibly high. We have people regularly calling us and asking people to see if they're going to apply. If we have people that they can employ. Just today, Kenosha called because they're recalibrating their school district FTE and how their teaching is lining up, and they wanted to know if they can get in on some of the teacher education candidates coming out and getting their name in the mix for candidates coming. Where we run into a little bit of a snag is if people don't want to leave a very small geographic area or a very small teaching expectation. Because this program is set up to help you support all of the learners in your classroom, which is what secondary schools in America are designed to do, you also come out with an ESL certification, which is incredibly short right now. So the idea of not getting a job has a lot to do with your limitations more than it has to do with there not being a job. So if the gray area of that is what we need to talk through, we can also do that at some point. So how committed? We also have a career center. There's a whole team of people there that help you get licensed. They help you do practice interviews. Just last week, they had a whole series of principals that came, and you could sign up for 30-minute slots, and they do a mock interview with you and then give you feedback after it, and you could sign up for those. We have different types of webinars on how to apply for both your license and create a cover letter that would be useful to try to highlight the skills and values you have as a teacher that you hope to find in a school district. So there are a lot of resources. We are definitely here to support you, but I would not want to say that we guarantee it because the choice is yours, and we regularly will be treating you as an adult and not in a, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to be treated as an adult and figure it out yourself. I don't know why I did that voice. That's not quite what I was heading for. But your agency is paramount in our understanding. We think that we are here to support the teacher you mean to be through the resources that we have available. So those are the pieces that I'd underscore in that. All right, we can keep going. All right, so back to the slides that our dear friend Anthony has created for us. I am going to move. Okay, so admissions process and decoding some of the language in there. The 3.0 GPA is a standard for graduate school at UW-Madison. The purpose of that is to make sure that you can navigate the intense level of reading and writing we're going to ask you to do as a grad student. What it isn't there to do is be a gatekeeper for somebody who had a fumble at some point in time in their undergrad. So if you are a candidate that has less than a 3.0, especially if it's really close, but if we can find out a way to verify that you're going to be able to navigate the academic work that's going to be asked of you, we want to have you part of our group. So we definitely look at things holistically. You have a section in your application to tell us if your GPA is low and why. And we're happy to look at that, or we're happy to look at alternative evidence that you might have that you can do this work. Excuse me. Another reason I was really glad it was virtual, as obviously my cold is coming forward. The non-negotiable is the bachelor's degree, and you must have the bachelor's degree by the time the program starts in June. So it can't be, I'm going to get it at the end of the summer and then we'll back up. We don't have any space for that. We can only take people who have already fulfilled their undergraduate degree. Each content area asks you to write 3 essays. There's no formula that they're looking for, but I can tell you that we read them with a pretty close lens. And it is not about seeing perfect writing. We want to understand who you are and who you think you are as a teacher. And we want to understand if we think we can help you on your journey. So each content area has asks drastically different questions, because what it means to be an English teacher is very different than what it means to be a math teacher. And you can see that in their essay prompts. The letters of recommendation are also reviewed quite strongly. We absolutely have to have at least 1. We prefer 2. We won't read more than 3. So my recommendation on if you do a letter of recommendation is if there's any part of your application that's feeling a little unclear or uncertain, get somebody to write an application or a recommendation letter about that topic. So if you have a lower GPA, get someone to write to say, or has experience with you that thinks that you can do academic graduate level work. If you're somebody who hasn't had any experience on your resume working with youth, do you have anybody that you have worked with that can talk about or understand what it means to be a teacher and what other attributes you're bringing to the table? If you've had no background with a range of cultural components that might come forward as a teacher, having somebody write about attributes that you do have that would support those types of demands, those are super powerful places to ask folks to write letters. Oops, probably move the piece forward. This is true. Why do you want to be a teacher? Make sure you've answered that question for yourself first. The essays don't need to be long, but we do need to feel you and hear you in there. And applications that say, I'm teaching because I don't know what else to do before I go to law school. And I happened to read one of those a couple of weeks ago. Doesn't, especially in social studies, when we have people who are really keen to be teachers. We do have a teacher shortage of people who really want to be teachers. We need to address that. So make sure you help us understand why you want to be a teacher. The requirements, well, this might be my personal value, but my fingerprints are a lot on the program. Context matters. People matter way more than strict requirements. I am keen to understand your values and hold ours and make sure that we're doing what we can for youth in America and is going to school. That's pretty much the driver. Okay, why are you, yep, what previous experiences? You know, sometimes you're going to feel like you're answering a question multiple times. And some things need to be highlighted multiple times because it really matters to you. But we will look at your resume. We will look at your short answers. We'll look at the letters that you write. Or your letter recommendators write. And then what I will say is the statement of purpose, that's open-ended. We try to give very little counsel on that. Sometimes that's overwhelming to not have any boundaries. I would say don't go over a page. Just because to help you say specifically what you want to say or call forward something, but don't re-put your essay short answer in your statement of purpose. The statement of purpose is a tool that we have to just connect with you on the most direct way possible. So whatever way you want to do that will be reviewed well. Okay, I will see. Oh, statement of purpose guide. And then Roger, will we be sharing these slides with them in the chat, or is there a way, not openly for everybody, but for the people that are here to see these slides?
So under current accessibility rules, we can't actually share the slides without them. If anyone here who wants to email Anthony and say, can you please send me the slides? He can email you the slides. That's a way of getting around it. So I will drop Anthony's email address in there just so people have it, but you probably have an email with his email address also somewhere, but I'll put that in there as well.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And if you end up taking a screenshot or whatever you want to do, but or have me go back and forth, we can do that. I also don't want to read the slides to you. So if there's something that I am missing that you'd like to call up, I'm very good with being interrupted. Okay. Yeah, those are good. But it's not a checklist. If you don't get to one of those, that's not required. You need to tell us what we need to know about you. That's really the core of it. And then who to ask for letter recommendators. These are some really good ideas on where we find different people. But the only thing that I can say over the years that I've done this, as soon as we create a list, you probably have a context that goes against the list. It might be somebody who is your great Aunt Beth, if you see over there on the recommenders to avoid, mama's mama, and great Aunt Beth. I love the concept there saying they might speak well to really liking you, but the point being what we want to hear is somebody who can talk about your skills as a future teacher. And that might be somebody in the column on the right, but the focus should be that more than please give them a chance. So that would be one more thing that these are the odd ones that stick out to me. Somebody had their former employee or employer write them a letter of recommendation that they had ripped off a half a sheet of a spiral notebook piece of paper and took a picture of it and sent it in. If your employer does that, perhaps you'd like to ask somebody else, unless they write something really special on that paper and that's just their style. Okay, we talked about the GPA being under a 3.0, and I'm going to just talk about these dates, and then I'm going to pause again. This January 15th that you see rolling around out there, that is our priority due date because that's when we can start putting things in motion. So if you're thinking about applying for a future year, every application up until January 15th is viewed the same so that we don't have this backslide of who can get it in first and wanting to get an answer. So if you turn it in September or October, November, December, January 14th, all reviewed in the same first pool. After that, we do a review every month. Each content area has a team of reviewers that look at the applications that came in and the applications that were already in and make the choices going forward. So if you get in the earliest, you have the most chance to get in. I know we're after January 15th, so if you're still thinking about applying, one bonus to maybe put this higher up on your to-do list, even though we technically can accept an application through May 30th, is right now we are looking at scholarships. So that's gift money in addition to teacher pledge loan forgiveness money. So we have a variety of scholarships that various generous donors have offered people who want to be teachers. And they're sometimes calibrated on content, sometimes on demographic, sometimes on experience background. It's the private donor's intention to put that forward. And we're in that mix right now. So you would, for the first round. So if we were getting your application in March, you would be in that mix. And then we will have another round that comes out towards the end of April, early May. And then we'll have the last one that we'll do in June, unless somebody doesn't come. So just if you're interested in applying and the timing is on board for you to do that, the sooner, the more likely you have an application lineup. The other thing is around May 15th, we start making the teams for the summer community work. So that's the other space that if you can get in before May 30th is good. After May 30th is doable, but it does feel a little pushed. Unless you're an international candidate, then we need to have your application by March 15th anymore. Oops, that's after today. If you're an international candidate on this call, let's talk so that we can do something streamlined if you're still thinking about this time point. Then we all will be on campus together starting June 10th. We're going to have an orientation day that walks through all of the things that we're going to be asking you to do in the next year. And then you're going to graduate with you'll be set up to graduate with your degree and 2 full certifications in August of 2027. Okay, I think I'm going to just try to take that break again and see how we're landing on any specifics.
Hey, Joey, we have a question regarding international students. They
Yeah.
were wondering if you could just repeat what you just said because they didn't understand.
So if you're an international student who doesn't already have a visa appointment, doesn't already have components set up to start work in June, our International Student Services group has put March 15th out as what they would call a due date to make sure that all of that could happen. So if I see it as now March 19th, if you are somebody that needs those things, we can maybe stay on the call afterwards or get things set up and figure out what express specifics would matter to you and connect you with an international student services advisor. There's really no, you betcha. Thanks for asking, Olivia. I do have a pretty wide lens on the program, so anything you want to know from like general age band, types of things people think about, things they say after they graduate, biggest struggles on Tuesday, December 15th. Those are all components that I could maybe help you think about to see if this is the right match for you.
I have a question that you might be
Yeah.
able to answer.
Yeah,
I have several years of experience teaching, mostly in a Waldorf setting, and I'm, an active experiential educator. I help coordinate a semester school, like a micro college semester school program, and don't have formal like public school teaching experience, but I'm really looking for a program, that's really rigorous in terms of the pedagogy aspect and curious, curious to hear a little bit more about that. And I know this program is really open to folks with teaching experience and without teaching experience. I want to make sure before diving in that I would feel challenged in those subject areas.
absolutely. Jay, can you tell me which subject area you're considering?
I'm most interested in social studies, but I would be looking at a year from now,
Sure.
not this upcoming summer.
Yep. Okay, pedagogically speaking, I would say that the two biggest spheres that I could put on the table is we really believe in the science of learning and development on a theoretical side. So understanding issues around metacognition, understanding how a person learns at various stages in their development, and the purpose behind each of the contents that you're trying to drive through. So specifically in our social studies, we are looking at democratic education as the way to have capable citizenry. So the elements in the theoretical pieces that line up with that are going to be Socratic seminar, structured academic controversy, how to navigate multiple and competing opinions and facts in a social studies classroom, while trying to navigate breadth and depth on kind of a previous style of how social studies was taught, even say 15 years ago. The other component that our social studies is really connected to is global education. So their focus is looking at what a curriculum looks like in the US. Yes. But there's a project that they do where they also look at a very similar curriculum in Singapore. And she just changed it. I think it's I don't want to say it. It's a different continent. And it's super useful to think about what we're doing differently and consciously. So the science of the teacher move and the pedagogical methods are pretty intense in the way that we are thinking about them all the time. The part that I would partner with that is we are recognizing that we are primarily making well-started beginners. We are not trying to make people expert teachers. We are trying to give everyone the tools they need to help the learner in front of them move from where they are to where they're going. And so the other side of that is of equal importance, and that's the social justice aspect or equity education or the various components of culturally relevant pedagogy and all of the pieces that can sound like buzzwords. But what that comes down to us is, can you build and maintain respectful relationships with every person in your classroom? Do you understand what that means as a person? And have you had ample time to try it? We don't expect everyone to know how to come here, but understanding how to do this well has a really high ceiling. So the building respectful relationships is a big component. Thinking about how you're taking your learning goals and aligning those with the tasks and texts that you have chosen from your theoretical components and making sure that those line up. That again, high ceiling. How are you making that content accessible to the students in your classroom? And how do you know if they learned it or not? These are the types of things that we will do in much smaller bite-sized things. I'm guessing they're not on any of the early entry slides, because if you're not an experienced teacher, some of that can feel overwhelming. And so to that point, I also want to draw back. We know that the point, again, is how do we help you set up being the teacher you mean to be? And how do you attend to all of the learners in your classroom? If those two things are something you want to do, we are all in with you. And then, sorry, here's another common question, and I think yours kind of goes that way, so I'm going to answer it too. Where will you do your student teaching? So the summer setup, we do send a survey out for a few things, but that is we don't really know you outside of your paperwork. And you don't really know us outside of our paperwork in that first semester. But you will be in a learning team with about 3 or 4 other people, and you will go to a community organization, and you will have no teaching responsibilities. But you will also you're not going to be a student there. What we're going to ask you to do is go and engage with adolescents in a setting that's different than something you've had before. That's the whole ask. We're going to give you little components to try out and explore and do in that setting, and then come back and reflect on it. Understanding how to reflect on your own identity and in your own strengths and areas that you might want to grow in, and still looking at assets that matter for you and your student and recognizing that there's plenty of stuff to build on, can take practice. And that's what the first summer is really all about. It'll look at that 30,000-foot view of why we do schooling. What is it about ed linguistics? What's the purpose of your content area? on a theoretical side, and then get out there and play with the kids and see what you learned this week. And if you see that in reality or not, and then let's bring it back and discuss it. The fall is in 2 parts. In September and October, you focus a lot on your, well, we call it the practicum, the school practicum. You are with one class in a consistent way. We want you to start building those relationships and really seeing the teacher moves. And so depending on your classroom and your setup and your comfort, how fast and how much you engage in that is really up to you in the context. However, we have everybody set up on a trajectory to start doing part-time student teaching in early November. So November and December, you would be a student teacher for 1, maybe 2 classes where you would officially be holding teaching responsibilities. But the beauty of this is we can pick them up and set them down based on what you're ready for. So that our primary goal is that you are ready to do a full student teaching starting mid-January in the spring semester after you've started with us. Again, it is developmental, it is gradual, and you will have say on a lot of characteristics. What we tend to do, though, is not put it down in a list, because some people will choose ease of location over the type of instructional mentor they might need. And so we ask those questions. You will really get to know your advisor, and all of our advisors really engage with you. And if you get anywhere and you walk into that classroom that we'll pair you up with, that's not on you, that's totally on us. We'll pair you up with somebody you're going to go in and meet. And if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And we will move on and do something else. If you get in there and you start teaching and you're not sure about things, we will work with you. We will work with the mentor teacher. And if we need to pivot, we will pivot. So if you are looking for experiential learning, or if you're looking for learning that's connected more through media or poetry or strong student identity, we're going to work with you to see what do you know and what do you need to know, and then try to get you in there, because that 1 semester is gold. It is the one time in your career that so many experts are going to be focused solely on you. And so we want to make sure that we're providing you with the opportunity to learn. It might have been a little long-winded. Sorry about that. Will I have to take a practice exam? Sorry, I should have said it. Follow-up questions on that I can also take. That might have been more robust than you were trying to ask, Jay.
No, that was really, really helpful. Thank you for that picture. It was really helpful. Thank you.
Great, great. The praxis exam, you will know you do not take it before the application. No. Nope. What we want to do is just see where you're at. And then if it's 2 things, you can talk to your content advisor ahead of time. So if you know that you're going to be applying to science, get in touch with Mark Olson and say, do I have enough science? And he'll probably say, you're really close, you'll have to take a praxis. Just because that happens to almost everybody in science. In English, it's less common because many people, even at like ethnic studies degrees, often still have classes in the recursive writing process, the ability to understand and operate in English grammar. And those are 2 smaller ones, but those are 2 pieces. The biggest one is the breadth and depth of the literature that you've been exposed to. You can't read everything, but we need you. Oh, wait, no one in here said English. Sorry. So the praxis, if you get declined due to content background, there's a grace period in there for you to have a conversation with them and say, like, wait, talk to me. Did I not say this right? What's going on? Because the praxis only covers a gap. So a fair number of people get conditionally admitted, where we say yes, but you can't get the license until you take the praxis. And so that gives you between whenever you apply until you get your state license the following summer to take the praxis. So those are the 2 ways, if you're thinking your content's a little thin, that you could navigate that. Military obligations this summer for about a week at a time, 3 times. Oh boy. This first summer is the hardest. 1, we definitely have worked with military obligations in the past, and we will do all we can in the future. Where things start to get a little slippery it depends on where that week lands. So because the summer is a truncated semester, you take 2 classes in the first 4 weeks and 2 classes in the second 4 weeks. So if you miss one of those weeks, that means you're missing 25% of 2 classes. Now, sometimes there's other ways to get around that, or sometimes where the week lands ends up not being a problem. The reason I went oof is I can't give you a direct answer because it will come down to the instructor. But I do know the schedule really well. And if we want to look at the specific dates or what can be done ahead of time or after time, we will do that. We are actually working with somebody right now who has a family commitment in October. And so although I can't say it'll work or not work, we can put the choice on the table with what that is, because once again, we want the agency to be yours. And is the ask something that you can still manage or not? And that we'll keep working with you on that. So excused is less so again in the program because we reach benchmarks more than anything. And so that's why we usually with enough time can get there. So are you ready to student teach because you did all of the pieces to be ready, or did something else come up and it's a struggle? I hope that helps. Okay, great. Any
Hey,
other
Joey,
questions? Yes.
just a time check for you. You got about 7 minutes left.
Great. 7 minutes. So if you have something you want to put in the chat or you want to unmute because you're like, I definitely want this one thing answered. I'm also going to look over here at my notes on what I was thinking we want to be sure to cover.
Can I ask another question?
Yes.
I've read in multiple places that UW-Madison is ranked as the #1 school in education, and I'm really curious to hear from your perspective, what are the qualities that have, led led to that reputation, and what is it that stands out to you about this program that draws in the best students? And curious to hear more about that.
So that is one big broad marketing concept that I'm going to guess Roger might shiver a little bit if I go ahead and answer. But as he's controlling the recording, it'll be up to him on how that navigates it. So one, the UW-Madison School of Ed is a really interesting animal because nowhere else in the country do we bring so many pieces together, like dance and policy, educational psychology, curriculum and instruction. I think there's 13 schools that together to make that fabric. So that's unique right there. Madison was a real leader in what it meant to understand teaching beyond just facts. So when we started to recognize that students needed more than just somebody facilitating facts to them, we had people like Gloria Latson-Billings, Michael Apple, Ken Zeichner, Hal. If you look up the main people that built the philosophies and pedagogies that are fueling education today, many of them were here. And when I got here, they just loved to debate and think and engage, and they had a lot of freedom to do that. And so I specifically in the Department of Curriculum Instruction, which is where we live. So that was super important. The other thing that I find very important is that the faculty lead the decisions here. So if a business decision comes in conflict with a philosophy decision, faculty get to win. So the way that plays out, our program is a design of that. We look at what the best practices are. We specifically redesign our program, our courses each year to address what we have, where we have it, and what we've learned. And so by having that background, it offers a really broad edge of what we can do in schools. Where that ranking comes from is where I don't know. Like sometimes I wonder, it's similar to like USA Today ranking a college. What I could say is, am I proud of this program? Absolutely. Will you feel alone? Never. Are we here to make you an educator that I can say wholeheartedly will be better and different than when you came in? Absolutely. I don't know where that's going to lead to you. That I can't tell you. And there's going to be times where you're going to be frustrated at certain things. And I can certainly talk about those. I don't have anything that I would try to hide from this program. And so to that point, by paying attention to language learners and diversity of linguistic demands, that's a big one. I think working with colleagues and knowing that this is a professional discourse community as much as anything else, and knowing how to reflect and learn on your own, as well as knowing the attributes and the theories and how to get them, that's a big one. Recognizing the value and importance of the people doing the work in the K-12 classroom right now in their context, that's huge. They also know their context. So we have a different role to play as teacher educators than you will have as a new educator, or that they have as a mentor. So what we have done, I think, is a nice job on how to bring those different levels of expertise, what's happening in the field largely, what's happening in teacher largely, how it actually works in a classroom, what it looks like to be part of a teacher ed prep program, and where you're trying to go. All of those 5 components hold a major lens in how your year will look with us. Gosh, I sounded a little bit like a commercial, but I really do mean that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, Joey, we have a
Yeah.
question that
Oh,
from Seth
okay.
that basically looking for some clarity on, is the program online, hybrid, or fully in person? Also a question, same situation. Also, if we are currently teaching, do we need to resign, or can we do our student teaching at our current school?
Wow, these are great questions.
Sorry, I have
Roger,
a thing that bounces up, so I couldn't see it. So sorry.
great. No, me too. Me too. So I appreciate that. And Roger, ping me if I get too deep in the weeds, because these are really interesting questions. The first one's easy. We are in person. We are in person. We are in person. We are in person. That said, summer 2, we have been trying to really be explicit on when do you do better learning in a community and when do you do better writing on your own. So summer 2 is a little bit of a different animal because you are specifically doing master's research on your teaching practice and where you need to learn. So that one is a little bit different, but the rest of these are in person. Yep, I can talk about schedule if that's the thing, about what that in-person schedule looks like. In terms of if you are working locally and you can go down to part-time, we have been able to nuance a few schedules together. Excuse me, especially if your school administrator is also flexible for fall. You absolutely cannot be teaching while you're student teaching. And I know that for some people that gets very frustrating because it feels like I'm doing so much work as a student teacher and I'm getting paid nothing for that. That is really frustrating. And I deeply feel that. However, you also have to hold too much administrivia when you're hired. You have to attend to everyone in the classroom because you are the teacher of record. You have to do the attendance. You have to make sure that anyone sick was caught up. You have to make sure that the accommodations are all being held and every co-teacher you work with is being connected to. And you know the curriculum and you know how that connects with the other curriculum design elements. And you're paying attention to both formative and summative assessments while doing all of the bookkeeping. And you're going to have plenty of time to do all of those things. We don't want you to do that while we want you to specifically learn how to teach. And changing the paradigm that it is not about you and what you're saying as much as it's about paying attention to what your learners are doing and what they're learning and what you're gleaning from that so that you can choose what to say what theories you want to try, what inclinings you have, what resources you want to draw from is a lot. And holding both is manageable for some people. Absolutely. But then they also don't lose this wonderful opportunity to learn more and better about themselves. So even as an experienced teacher, we would set up your student teaching to not be bogged down by administrivia. That is part of it. And we're going to ask you to hold it for a little bit because you also need to see where those cracks form. Because when you have to keep track of who's there and not there and how to do all the things, different strengths come forward. But if you're somebody who needs to explore different ways people are eliciting student thinking, great, we'll move you around in your student teaching, but it has to be full-time 15 weeks without you holding that administration lens. So again, that might have come across a little preachy. I certainly didn't mean to funnel that at you, Seth. It's a question that a lot of people experience and want to engage in, and there are teacher ed programs that do that. And if that's a better fit for you, that is great. It's just a lot to hold if you don't have a mentor teacher who's looking at the exact same students with you together. Because if they're holding a full load and you're holding a full load, it's hard to find the time together to talk on top of it as well. Okay. International Student Service Advisor. Yes, it's through Teradata. I don't have a single name. Kelly Hayek is the person that does that. And I can look at that in 1 second. This was supposed to end at 7, I think. So I'm going to do one last pivot point and then stay around and answer individual questions. If you want to talk to anybody in the program, another unique feature is each content area has a teaching faculty member. So we are actually academic staff. And the advantage to that is we aren't pressured to research. That includes myself. So I'm the administrator, but I am not a faculty member. Our teacher coordinators, our program coordinators are not full faculty members. And there's a strength to that in that they are very much here to do this program. So yes, it's a lot. Yes, they're currently working with 20 some people right now trying to become teachers, and they're fully in as their advisor, but they will make room for you and they want to talk to you and they want to get to know you, and you should get to know them. So be comfortable reaching out, pushing in a second time, asking again. I know I made fun of 2 pieces in an application, but really there's no bad question. There's just sometimes context makes me giggle. But we're definitely here to help you. And if you don't get what you need, ask again, ask again, ask again. Yes, let's do this. Okay, I'm going to stay on for the international student link. And is there anything else I'm forgetting? Okay, I'm not seeing any other new questions. I am not thinking. Okay, so I'm happy to answer the international students question and or get that link together. And then if there's anything else that you're coming up with, you can email me directly. You can ask it in the chat, or you can hang on because I do have a few minutes afterwards. But it's just going to take me a minute to find that international link.